Hello, I'm Professor Ginkgo, and it is Spectember! Woohoo! If you didn't know, Spectember is when a lot of biology and natural science content creators like myself do things related to speculative evolution. What exactly is speculative evolution? Well, speculative evolution, or Spec Evo to put it simply, is any kind of content that starts to talk about animals, specifically hypothetical fictional ones. Things like how they evolve, how they react to their environment, things like that. Some of my favorite science fiction worlds actually are those created with a little bit of speculative evolution. So today we're going to be a bit of a primer. We're going to start the history of Spec Evo, and after that do a deep dive into some of the ones you should watch. Despite being so modern, speculative evolution actually started along with early science fiction. The earliest one being H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. H.G. Wells, in his book, describes the descendants of humans in the future. The dumb but beautiful Eloi, who are descended from the rich class of humans, and the ugly and underground dwelling Murlocs, descendants of the poor that preyed on the Eloi's cattle. Yeah, H.G. Wells was a socialist, and he kind of wasn't subtle about the whole eat the rich thing. Kind of funny. In addition, near the end of the Time Machine, he travels forward in time and sees humanity de-evolved into this weird kangaroo-like thing. In addition, he sees giant millipedes and crabs in a frozen-over Earth. In addition to Wells, the books set in Barsoom, first written by Edgar Rice Burroughs, all have a massive alien ecosystem and a lot of different cultures with sentient races. These two writers, along with being the fathers of modern science fiction, are also the grandfathers of speculative evolution. A good chunk of speculative evolution, in fact, focuses on these two things: what would happen on Earth in the future, what happens on other planets. Modern speculative evolution, however, didn't really start until the 80s, the year of weird hair and satanic panic. Among these awkward years for Western culture came After Man, a book written by Dougal Dixon, a man we honestly can consider the father of speculative evolution, and one we will get into detail later. His book After Man influenced a lot of modern speculative evolution. After Man was one of the real first that actually had animals with great straightforward niches and with a detailed ecology of each of his fictional animals. Being a geologist, Dougal Dixon even accounted for plate tectonics, which is something that really altered how life would evolve in his future world. After Man left a ripple effect, and speculative evolution actually influences a lot of things, from film to video games. And it's this legacy we're going to go over today, actually. We're going to go over several series, and we're going to go over the premises, the various reasons why I should watch it, and we'll see, in general, how much I like it. So, let's start with books. Speculative evolution start with books, and there is a lot of good ones. Dougal Dixon himself wrote 3, who mentioned After Man, New Dinosaurs, and Man After Man. After Man is an oldie but a goodie. It sets the groundwork for most speculative evolution projects. It looks at the Earth 50 million years in the future, with Earth's tectonic plates shifting around. Earth is very different from how we know it today. Australia has collided with Asia, and South America once again is sailing away in this lonely little island. It's a very unique premise. Although it's somewhat unrealistic, it's still pretty weird. Ungulates and carnivores have went extinct for the most part, and rabbits along with rats are the dominant forms of life on the planet. The story is extremely wondrous, and there are bizarre creatures like, for example, ground-dwelling predatory bats. It is pretty interesting though, because it has bizarre creatures grounded a little bit in reality, which is something that speculative evolution is very good at showing. After Man is also pretty deep to find. It had a recent reprint and is available on modern e-readers unlike its other two siblings. The New Dinosaurs is a different sort of speculative evolution. It's told the story of an alternate current day where dinosaurs never went extinct. Similar to After Man, it hasn't aged particularly well with our current knowledge of dinosaurs, but it is very imaginative. In some places, it has also aged like fine wine, with him putting feathers on his dinosaurs despite it not being commonplace in books during the time. He also detailed terrestrial pterosaurs that are very similar to Anzarchid, and he created climbing dinosaurs before Microraptor was really discovered. This one is one of my favorites, but it's really hard to come by without paying $80 for a used copy. Man After Man is the last one of this series, and it is by far the wildest of the 3. It takes place in a world where mankind has ruined it, and mankind genetically creates several species to aid it in the last death throes of civilization. They create a spaceship and take man beyond the stars. Humankind at that time also creates various human species in order to take over the niches that were sadly led to extinction by humankind. And then time goes on, and human forms alter into wild and really weird species. Although the least well received of the 3, and my least favorite, This one's a good read for those who can stand the freakiness. I myself put it off as a kid. The art kind of freaked me out, and yeah, if it freaks you out, I can see why. It's also a more personal description. The other books have a sort of field guide vibe to it, while this one is more similar to a narrative in each of the species. Also, it's really hard to find nowadays. The book is pretty expensive from resellers and it hasn't had a reprint in a while. It's weird, it's hard to recommend to newcomers, but those that enjoy our next entry might find this one up their alley. Alright, let's be honest, you've ever heard of C.M. Cozeman's All Tomorrows? The spiritual successor of sorts to Man After Man, it tells the story of mankind taking the stars and colonizing the stars before losing a war to a galactic superpower called the Coup. They take mankind and genetically alter them, reduce them to multiple human forms, and reduce them to mere animals mentally. Human species are then seeded across the stars by the Coup, and eventually evolve into multiple species. The book is really weird, even compared to Man After Man, and it weaves a balance between personal facts and a bit of a personal attachment to various races. Really freaky and has a bit of body horror vibe to it, and it gained internet fame last year for a very good reason. It's just very strange with the imaginative horror of the different humans that were mutated, along with just how bizarre he could really make it. This is among the easiest of the books to read. You could read it online on a PDF, and there are also multiple videos to watch on it, in case you wanted to not read. Although Speculative Evolution by itself has never quite reached mainstream popularity, and is probably too niche to reach mainstream popularity, it is used a lot in film for world building. One of these films is 2005 King Kong by Peter Jackson. This one had a fair amount of lore and Speculative Evolution done in the world building. Specifically, the world of Kong, A Natural History of Skull Island, was a field guide done as an example of world building, which was written by Weta Workshop. And it's as if the island was real. It really has that pulp Lost World feel to it, with animals like Brontosaurus back when it was thought to be outdated, along with animals that feel really similar to the whole Lost World vibe while maintaining a modern take as if these animals were actually real. World of Kong has a rapid-fire showcase to the various animal entries, which is pretty good, although less detailed than other ones, but it takes its time to select animals, which is also pretty good. However, it is extremely expensive to pick up, with it selling for $500 by itself, used. If you dig around, you could probably find a copy for it on some internet archives to read for free. I highly recommend doing that instead, unless you want to have a collector's. In addition, Curious Archive did a showcase of the entire book. He has a YouTube channel all around Speculative Evolution, and I highly recommend honestly subscribing to him because he makes pretty good content. Speaking of films, Avatar used Speculative Evolution to result in stunning visas and wildlife that seem a little realistic. Although criticized for its okay story, nowadays nobody can question the sheer amount of effort that is put into the world building, and honestly it led as a gateway for a lot of people to enter Speculative Evolution. Avatar as a film isn't hard to watch nowadays. It's on modern streaming services like Disney Plus, and it'll have a sequel pretty soon. In addition, the world of Avatar is also an online database for free by the writers, and although a little less detailed, it is decent enough, and is a pretty nice read if you like it. Or if you're willing to shell out the price, you could also check the theme park version in Florida. Finally, my personal favorite of those books is Expedition by Wayne Barlow. Expedition takes place on a ruined world. Unlike Man After Man, however, there are aliens that come down and help them, the Yima. Humanity is slowly rebuilding, with the Yima find a planet rich in life, and so they send a crewed expedition to the planet Darwin 4. Darwin 4 is a world extremely different from life on Earth. Instead of eyes, radar has evolved as the main way for perception, jaws did not evolve, and hermaphrodism instead of binary sexes is a general trend on the planet. It makes for a very strange and fantastic world that feels alien, yet it's grounded in biology enough to feel pretty plausible. Also, Expedition has some of my favorite art, with it really only rivaling Natural History of Skull Island. And honestly, the pictures are just stunning to look at. For those tired of the impersonal field guide vibe a lot of the other ones have, this one has a narrative to it, with the narrator writing it as a diary in a similar vein to Charles Darwin and his island-hopping journeys. It's also pretty cheap to order. It got a reprint very recently. Speculative Evolution has also had quite a few documentary series, one of the most iconic being The Future is Wild, a 13-episode series. Being a spiritual successor to After Man, it has almost identical premise to its predecessor. Humankind's out of the picture, animals evolve in a post-human world. Unlike Afterman, however, it fast-forwards 5, 100, and 200 million years in the future. You can see snapshots of various ecosystems in the time. Future Wild hasn't aged super well with the CG, but it's still good nowadays. I watched it on a stream series a while back, and the designs of the Future Wild animals are very iconic for many Speculative Evolution fans, including myself. The Squibby is by far the most iconic Speculative Evolution animal, in my opinion. The main issue is finding it on modern streaming services. Many classic documentary series haven't been preserved quite well outside of fan preservation. It is available on Prime Video, but not in the USA. Outside of maybe adjusting it with a sort of VPN, you might look around some video sharing sites like YouTube or watching Curious Archive for a general overview of the animals. Dragons, a fantasy made real, is technically part of a trilogy, but it's the only really one of its set worth watching. The premise is simple. What if dragons actually existed? Full fire-breathing, winged sense. How would that evolve exactly? How would humankind interact with them? CG is a lot better than Future's Wild, and it holds up pretty well, all things considered. Blends practical effects in a way similar to Walking with Dinosaurs. Live action segments, where the researcher is trying to uncover dragons existing, do a lot to help explain different adaptations of the universe, which is very neat. It's hard to find online considering that it isn't even available in any streaming services, but it is a one-part series, so it's a lot easier to find than the Future's Wild around online intact. Alien Worlds is a Netflix adaptation and is the newest of all the documentaries I'm talking about today. It takes the different concepts for different planets that might have life and asks the questions of how life would evolve on these planets. It sounds good, and it had a lot of potential, but it didn't really live to the hype. CG and the effects are leagues better than the other ones here, but it doesn't have a good balance between live action segments where they take specialists and talk about how things evolve on the planet, and they reuse a lot of CG elements due to the price, I'm imagining. Still, it has a fair amount of imaginative worlds, and it's very easy to watch being on Netflix. Decent one for the newcomers to get into the genre. Alien Planet is a Chad version of Alien Worlds, and is, in my opinion, one of the best. It is harder to find, actually, but it makes up for it by being an adaptation of Expedition. Although it easily has the worst CG on the list, it makes up for it by bringing these worlds depicted in the book to life. It's not my favorite. I think that I like the Future Wild better, but in my opinion, the book is just straight up better, so I might be unfairly comparing it to the book. It's still good though, and it's not a one-for-one rip of the plot either, giving it some value for those who already read the book. With it being around 15 years between quality documentary series, Speculative Evolution really flourished on the internet. Appeal to that is pretty apparent. Anyone could create a world that they could think of. Speculative Dinosaur Project in particular is the most influential of the earlier Speculative Evolution projects online. Essentially the concept being new dinosaurs, but for a post-dinosaur renaissance world. At the time, it was pretty scientifically accurate, honestly, with the project having pages and pages of detailed work. However, the site they were hosted on has gone the way of the dinosaur, and the project went on indefinite hiatus in 2008, when the staff got tired of having to revise the dinosaurs with every major discovery. The entries have been preserved on the Speculative Evolution Wiki, but it's not like it's lost media. It is very hard to get into thanks to the organization of the wiki, but if you want to get into it, read the History of the Spec World page to get an idea of the premise and the concept, and I actually really highly recommend this one thanks to the massive amount of detail in the project. It is very, very interesting. Sarada is a project that's unlike any other I'm talking about today. The premise is that a moon was seeded by an observer for a long-term scientific experiment. The moon was seeded with a few animals, with finches being the largest vertebrate on the planet. Then it just takes off from there, every species diversifying to almost unrecognizable forms. Sarada is a mix, in my opinion, between the more land-based ones that we talked about today, like, for example, Afterman, and the extraterrestrial ones, for example, Expedition. It goes through multiple periods in the world's history, similar to the Future's Wild, and talks about the different landmasses with various world events that take place in the periods. It's extensive, and I always liked Speculative Evolution projects that did the whole Future's Wild layout. The world is very well done. My only issue with the project is that the site's drop-down bar is not in chronological order. On my first read through, I was a bit confused because I was reading a bit out of order. It's not knocking against the series, it's still good. I highly recommend it, just don't do my mistake. Sinead is written by C.M. Kozman, the same writer that did All Tomorrows, and he considers this one to actually be his favorite project between the two. In the 25th century, nations of Israel, Greek, and Turkey joined up to create a colony on an Earth-like planet. There, they encounter alien life that are kind of vertebrates, although they are unlike really anything we've ever seen. It's often compared to Expedition, and I completely see why. Both of them having just imaginative but wholly alien designs. The aliens have a design I've rarely seen before. They have two heads. One is a feeding proboscis, and the other houses both the sexual and the sensory organs. The series is really weird, but in a good way, with it avoiding the Earth animals, but in space pitfall a lot of series tend to do. The authors talk about making Sinayad a book, and I really hope he does, because I will support this project all the way. Finally, my personal favorite of the web series is Alien Biospheres. Created by Biblarion, the world starts with him and fellow YouTuber Artifexian creating a hypothetical alien world, including how the tectonic plates would move, and including how the atmosphere's composition is. Then he starts with the evolution of life on his planet, and moves on throughout time. He starts from the start of complex life forms, and moves upwards there, allowing you to go through every single important period in the world series. It is very, very in-depth, actually, and I highly recommend it to anyone who's interested in biology like myself. The web series goes over different adaptations on Earth and how similar adaptations might arise in an alien ecosystem. For example, as aquatic animals have a fishy silhouette, due to that being the best way to deal with dragon in the ocean. Each episode goes over a singular biome or trend in evolution, and is very interesting to watch. I highly recommend you subscribe to them if you like content like that. And there we have it. Speculative evolution is honestly one of my favorite kinds of science fiction. It's something that stirs the creative side of me in writing essentially a biology fanfiction. It's also just really cool to see the worlds people create and just how imaginative they are. Even if they're unrealistic, I just really like to see just the various different worlds in fiction. Please leave your favorite Speculative evolution project down below, even if it's one I missed. There's a lot of projects out there, and I know I missed a few of them that I should have talked about, but I just didn't have the time. So I hope you enjoy these strange, interesting worlds, and I will see you next time.